Welcome, everyone, to a very special edition of the Don Lemon Show. Kerry Gordy is a legendary entertainment executive and music producer. He's also the executive producer of Sunday Best, which is a new Netflix documentary about how the Ed Sullivan Show rewrote the rules of television by championing Black entertainers when it wasn't yet cool to do so.
Mr. Ed Sullivan.
Dig rock and roll music, yeah. I can twine and jerk, yes I can.
If you had to pick one person from the whole industry to represent this, it would be Ed Sullivan.
The greatest finger pointer in the history of television. A man who pointed his finger at the biggest stars in the business.
That's why they call me, yeah. They call me Double O Soul.
We think about Ed Sullivan, one of the most famous shows in television history.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Presley.
How old were you when you saw this, the Ed Sullivan Theater?
7 years old. It was a tremendous impact.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
The Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
People remember where they were. They remember what was happening, where they were sitting, what they're doing. I want to know, like, what were you thinking?
Ed Sullivan, do we have anybody like him today?
I grew up off Ed Sullivan.
Ed Sullivan always just stayed with me.
Call me Double O Soul.
Watching the Ed Sullivan Show was a cultural revolution.
Kerry Gordy joins me now. How are you, my friend?
How is my brother? I love you, man.
I love you too. Thank you so much. It's indeed a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. Man, you must be feeling, I want to talk to you about this, Doc, but you've got to be feeling great about this. I thought it's about time that someone does something on Ed Sullivan. It was a vibe. And I love the angle that you are doing, the approach that you took in doing this documentary.
Well, see, here's the thing. When you're doing a documentary, there's 1,000 ways you can do it, right? And the angle that you decide to take makes a big difference. And, and it's really important because if we do it correctly, then we'll have other opportunities to do other things. But if you do it wrong, then you lose the opportunity, especially if you're doing Black things or stuff from a Black perspective, right?
Yeah.
So here's the deal. How this whole thing started was Margot Special, who is Ed Sullivan's granddaughter, decided that she wanted to do a documentary. Okay, so on her grandfather. So she starts doing whatever she does, and then she has this happenstance meeting with Ambassador Shabazz, who is Malcolm X's daughter. Okay, and when she's talking to her, just kind of nicely talking to her, she's like, "Yeah, my grandfather this," and Shabazz was like, "Oh, your grandfather's Ed Sullivan? Oh my gosh." In our house, your father was so important because this is the only place that we as Black people got to see other Black people that look like us on TV. Right? And so she was like, "Oh yeah, that's great." She said, "No, you don't understand. We wouldn't know about Satchmo. We wouldn't know about Nat King Cole. We wouldn't know about Ella Fitzgerald and Lena Horne had it not been for Ed Sullivan sharing it with his audience." And not only that, humanizing these people so that they didn't look like what the conventional wisdom in the South was of Black people, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, some people in the South thought that Black people had tails. I mean, that's how crazy it was, right?
Yeah. But you know what? It's all full circle because, he had the power of television to bring that to the masses. But let's just be honest. I mean, Kerry Gordy, was this Berry Gordy? Right? This is Berry Gordy's son. Because of your dad, Berry Gordy, we know that those people, many of the people who appeared, that's why I say this is full circle, on the Ed Sullivan Show came from your dad discovering them and giving them opportunities, right? To see a Diana Ross or a Smokey Robinson or all of those people who are, right?
There's no question about that. So what happens is, and I'll get all the way around to that, and I'll get to 6 degrees of separation so that you can see how it really kind of took place. But so Shabazz, so when Shabazz told her that, she says, and I'm talking about Margot Special, who is Ed Sullivan's granddaughter. When Shabazz told her that, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I like that concept. Let me put this production company together." And she gets with this guy by the name of Rafi Marmar, who owned Delirio Films, and they then decided they were going to do this thing, but now they needed a real Black centric cultural director, and they ended up finding Sasha Jenkins. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, Sasha had done, he was the editor for Vibe magazine. He had co-authored the Eminem bio, the 50 Cent bio, the Beastie Boys, and he had done 2 projects with me. Mm-hmm. One was the Biz Markie documentary, which got great acclaim. And the second was the Rick James documentary. And I say, Rick James, bitch. No, anyway.
I'm Rick James.
I'm Rick James, bitch. Okay, anyway. Yeah. We did the documentary. We did those 2 things together. So naturally, when they approached him on doing Ed Sullivan and they wanted to do it from that perspective, he was totally into it. And he was like, cool, let me give my buddy KG a call and see if he would be willing to exec produce with us, right?
Yeah.
So now, of course, I'm the perfect person, as CNN used to call me to come on every time a Black celebrity died. But anyway.
Guilty.
Right? So
that's how we got to know each other. I mean, but go on.
That's right. So what happens is, so he calls me, he tells me what he thinks, and I said, oh man, this is great, because when I was a child, I used to remember running home on Sunday nights to see Ed Sullivan, because I could see people that look like me on television. I'm talking about from 6 to probably 12 years old. Right.
Yeah.
And I actually got to see these people, and you don't realize it at the time, but remember, back then people would say stuff like to me like, oh, you could do anything you want. You could be the president of the United States. But the fact of the matter is I knew in my heart, I can't be the effing president of the United States. I'm Black. Right? Because we didn't have anything to prove to us that we could do that. Right?
Yeah.
Now my daughter who grew up, she had a chance to physically see a Black president with 2 Black daughters in the White House. She knows that that's something that she can attain. But back then, there were not even any Black entertainers on TV except for Ed Sullivan. Anytime you saw somebody Black, they were a maid or a butler. Yes, sir, boss. That was it, right? Mm-hmm. If you were even able to see that every once in a while, right?
Right.
So to that end, when they came to me, I was like, I'm totally in for this. Not to mention that it doesn't matter. Whatever Sasha Jenkins came to me with, I'm going with, because I love that brother and he was good. And it's horrible that he died before we aired on Netflix. And this is just a couple of months ago.
All right. So you went all the way around and you brought it back though. But seriously, and I think about it. I said, because everything is connected and there's a reason they got the best of folks in the business to do it. But you have the historic knowledge because you were right there and you've got the font of that knowledge. Again, that's her dad. Berry Gordy Jr. is your dad, founder of Motown. In case anyone is out there, you don't know. You should know. All right.
But also, I ran Prince's company. I ran Paisley Park.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and I managed Rick James and I ran the urban division for Warner Brothers. So I was the right person at the right place at the right time with the right.
That's why I said you had the knowledge. You have the knowledge. And so look, when I think about Ed Sullivan, I think about all these acts that I used to see. by the time that I came around, it was barely still on. I think it went off the air. It was like 1948 to 1971.
Right.
And so, right. But they were still doing the repeats and running. But I mean, you would watch and it's like, ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme, that's your dad. Ladies and gentlemen, Smokey Robinson, that's your dad. Ladies and gentlemen, Jackie Wilson, like all of those people, right? Yes. Those were all you and your dad. Right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Gladys Knight and Supremes or whatever. And you saw people who were, you saw African-Americans, as you say, in positions and in a format that you weren't really used to them seeing them. For everyone in the audience who may not be familiar with Ed Sullivan, give us a crash course in the Ed Sullivan Show on what this meant to the world, but especially to people of color. It was a big deal.
Well, it was a huge deal because he humanized. First of all, he had an audience of 35 to 50 million a week. That's the first thing. Okay.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Okay.
No.
And second of all, what he did against the wishes of his broadcasters, against the wishes of his sponsors, against the Ku Klux Klan, against all of the racist, he went against them all and said, listen, I do not discriminate based on color. My issue is I am giving my audience the best performance and the best talent out there. And I am pulling people in that have character, that have grace, that have style, right? And prior to that, we weren't known as those type of people. We were known as savages. You have to understand, the kids nowadays do not understand the struggles that the generation before them went through. And this isn't that long ago, Don. This is in our lifetime, right? Civil Rights Act, 1965. That is crazy. That this is not ancient history. Right. So what happens is Ed was discriminated against when he came to the United States because he was Irish and his parents were discriminated against, like they were lazy, that they were drunkards, that they were all of this. And he lived in Harlem. So he had Black friends. He knew what Black people were about. And of course, there's some good and there's some bad in every race. But the fact of the matter is, in his knowledge of Black folks, he was like, no, these folks are cool. But not only are they cool, they are the most talented.
I was going to ask you why did he have that commitment, which I'm very happy that he did have that commitment, but why so? And you said it's because in part, I believe you said in large part, because that he was discriminated against. And you take deep dives into his dedication to uplifting Black entertainers.
Yes.
So talk about some of his methods, some of the fights. You said it was against the wishes of his advertisers, of his sponsors, of his producers, and all of that. But listen, if it didn't rate, they must have been rating when these Black performers came on. They must have been doing something good for those ratings, or I don't think even Ed Sullivan would have had them on the show. Right?
That was the whole point. When he pulled them on, they got ratings. Because check this out. If you have a segment of the audience, right? And then you put on Black people and you don't lose the segment of the audience you have, but now you gain all of these millions of Black people. Yes, your ratings are gonna go up, and the powers that be have to kind of take a little bit of a back seat based on profits. So yes. He had a platform that was green. It wasn't black. It wasn't white. It was green.
Support comes from ZBiotics. I have to tell you about this game-changing product that I use before a night out with drinks. It's called Pre-Alcohol, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic created by PhD scientists to help you tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's the science. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's that buildup, not dehydration, that is responsible for that lousy feeling the next day. Well, ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks that byproduct down so you can actually wake up feeling your best. I tried it for the first time before a night out with friends. I had my favorite tequila cocktail, and the next morning, I couldn't believe how clear-headed and on top of my game that I felt. So, as summer winds down, whether you are hitting the beach, camping, or just enjoying the last trip, don't forget to pack Z-Biotics. Make sure that it's your first drink of the night, and also enjoy responsibly and wake up ready to live every day to the fullest. So here's what you do. You go to zbiotics.com/lemon drops. That's zbiotics.com/lemon drops and get 15% off of your first order with the code lemon drops at checkout. And guess what? It is risk-free. If you're not satisfied, they're going to refund your money. No questions asked. So go to zbiotics.com/lemon drops and use the code lemon drops for 15% off. Was his allyship to the Black community, was it just confined to entertainment and the representation, or was he an activist?
No,
yep.
he was.
And you talk about it.
He was an activist because prior to being in entertainment, he was a journalist, and he was a sports journalist, and he had problems when certain sports folks wouldn't allow Black people to play in different games and things because they were Black. He would just have problems, and he would write a column back then about how ridiculous and stupid that was. So before he became into entertainment, remember, he lived in Harlem, right? And he was a total advocate, and it wasn't that it was Black; it was of any culture or any type of. It could be Mexican, it could be Jewish, it could be Irish. It didn't matter to him. The key to him was the content of the character that he was dealing with, and whether or not they were exceptionally talented. That's all.
Yeah. So listen.
Wait a minute. You were talking about his sponsors, right?
Mm-hmm.
His broadcasters told him that he could not touch a Black woman's hand on the show. He couldn't touch a Black woman's hand. And I mean, he ended up, Diana Ross kissed him, right? On the show, right? I mean, we're talking about doing stuff. He wasn't supposed to shake Joe Lewis's hand, right? They had an issue with everything he did to humanize Black folks.
Yeah. My dogs are agreeing with you, Kerry.
Right?
Yeah, my dogs are agreeing with you. So I was looking at just some research on Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
And it says, let's see, I think he says Ed Sullivan. Let me just read what it says, because you just said that. Ed Sullivan played a significant, albeit sometimes overlooked, role in the civil rights movement by consistently featuring Black performers on his popular television show during a time of racial segregation. He showcased a wide range of Black artists, including musicians, singers, and dancers, giving them a national platform and challenging the prevailing racist attitudes of the era. And they say he is often overlooked. The thing is that many people talk, oh my God, during the civil rights movement, I believe this, I believe that. But he showed it through his actions, as you says, breaking barriers, challenging sponsors and viewers, humanizing Black artists, promoting equality, and he became a catalyst for change. Why is he so often overlooked? Because now it would just say, hey, the man was an ally, right? Or he was a blue-eyed soul brother, so to speak.
Yes. Well, I think that he's probably often overlooked because as time goes by and people don't focus on those things, then it just gets lost in history. I was with somebody the other day, and I was telling them, "Oh yeah, I worked on the Ed Sullivan thing, and Stevie Wonder came down to speak for me, and blah blah blah." And I said, and they said, "Well, who's Stevie Wonder?" Wait. I said, "Wait a minute.
What?"
I said, "Are you a college graduate?" Right? And he's like, "Yeah, I graduate." I said, "You don't know who Stevie Wonder is?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, you would know his songs." He says, "No, I don't think so." I said, "Happy birthday to ya." And he said, "Oh yeah, of course I know that." I said, "That's Stevie Wonder." I said, Stevie Wonder is partly responsible for Martin Luther King's holiday. He's the one that pushed that and instituted that. I said, and I was thinking, okay, if this generation, if a 24-year-old college graduate doesn't know who Stevie Wonder is, that's a problem, because that goes to show that we are not giving back to our youth, our generation, our history. And we need to do these type of things. Everybody who's listening to this podcast needs to look at it, and if they love it, then they need to tell their friends. They need to do what they can do, just like you're doing what you can do. You're using your platform to give me the opportunity to tell that story so that everybody knows that story, because I guarantee you white folks are not going to lose Elvis, and they are not going to lose the Beatles.
Wow, I can't believe that. Seriously, someone didn't know who Stevie Wonder. I did a documentary on Stevie Wonder, right?
Yes.
And talking about his music. And Stevie Wonder, I mean, he would had some of the best-selling albums of all time. If you ask any artist, any rocker, any legendary rocker, they would say, well, at least I have a chance this year because Stevie Wonder did not put an album.
That's right, because he had Music on My Mind, he had Talking Book, he had Fulfilling This First Finale, he had Songs in the Key of Life, he had Hotter Than July. I mean, all
Inner Visions, For Once in My Life, right?
I'm glad that you remembered Inner Visions, because that's a good one. That's a great one.
That's straight from my era. That's 1973, right? So that's when I would be, just a little young buck learning about these things. But yeah, of course. Hello. Right. We had these albums. We had the big album covers sitting around in the house. And then later I didn't understand why my parents would get so upset, Kerry, when I would take the album cover and make it into like a village with a house. And they'd be like, boy, why did you open my album cover? You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd prop them up like a little house and make a village and whatever. But I remember all those album covers.
Remember, those album covers had liner notes inside of them, right? And you could learn, and it was something, it was actually, like a piece of art, looking at all of these album covers, and it was definitely cultural, and it's definitely historic.
And the lyrics, that's how you learn with the lyrics, when you're like, wait a minute, I've been singing this wrong the entire time. So let me ask you then. So
wait a minute, and I just want to say one thing. Stevie was the first performer from Motown on Ed Sullivan, 1963, I believe. Yeah.
But he was young. Stevie Wonder's a baby. I'm still surprised at how young Stevie is. I was like, man,
because he was only 12 years old then, 13 years old then.
I know. It's crazy. He's not that much older. He's older, but he's not that much older. Stevie Wonder, when I did the doc, I did a doc on Marvin Gaye too. And Stevie Wonder was one of the people that I interviewed for the doc. And he actually sang there and just kind of serenaded me. And I was sitting there going, I cannot believe I'm sitting in a room with I pretended it was just me and Stevie Wonder, even though there was like a producer there and camera people and, and technical people and audio people. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm sitting here with Stevie Wonder. It was just one of the most memorable moments of my life that I will cherish. And I developed a friendship, with him after that. But I mean, I have to say, I want to know, which I ask everyone, what did you learn? Everyone learns something when they're doing these things. What did you learn in this process? Because I'm sure you thought you knew everything and you didn't by doing this Ed Sullivan doc.
Well, what I didn't know or what I didn't understand was all the adversity that he had to go through to do this. See, as you're doing the doc, you're uncovering things. You're uncovering his letters. You're uncovering what the issues were. I mean, they actually wanted to get rid of him for doing this, for putting Black people on, and they were trying to sell his show without him, right? I mean, it gets really nasty. But the fact of the matter is that I learned that this is now one of my new heroes. He's a hero to me because I don't believe that the civil rights movement would have had, I don't believe we would be where we are now, because it took each person's little piece of the puzzle in order to, let me give you 6 degrees of separation. Okay, here we go. Ed Sullivan gets this platform for, for 50 million viewers, right? Berry Gordy signs this guy by the Jackson 5 and has this kid by the name of Michael Jackson. Okay. And then later on, and they sell 100 million records. Later on, Berry Gordy decides, I'm going to do The Wiz, right? And he says, I'm going to have Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and Richard Pryor. They're going to star in The Wiz, but I'm also going to get this guy by the name of Quincy Jones to do the music, right? Yeah. And so Quincy and Michael meet each other at The Wiz, right? And then they decide, you know what, we're going to go off and do a couple albums. And they do Off the Wall and Thriller. Okay. And Thriller becomes the biggest record in the history of the world. And through that, they meet. Quincy meets Steven Spielberg, who is the biggest director in the world. And Steven Spielberg says, I want you to be my partner and I want you to work on a movie with me. So they work together on a movie. And while Quincy is in Chicago, he sees this local TV show host and he says, that lady would be great in my movie. He puts her in his movie, which was The Color Purple. That movie gets recognition, gives her the ability to take her television show national, and she says, I am going to endorse the first Black candidate for president of the United States, Barack Obama, and that is my 6 degrees of separation, right? From Ed Sullivan all the way to Barack Obama. A lot of things had to happen in there, but without that, it wouldn't have happened.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, small world. But also, look, don't forget, you cannot leave out Nipsey Russell, which I love. Lena Horne in The Wiz, right? What was it? That show with Mabel King was in? What's his name? With Raj and Rerun.
Yeah. What's happening?
What's happening? Yeah, I mean, it all comes full circle. So listen, I don't know. Did you ask your dad about the doc? What does he think? Is he cool? What's he think?
It's really funny. I haven't talked to my father since we finished the doc. I haven't talked to him about it since we finished the doc, but he's getting a lot of praise for it because he came in and he just said stuff that people didn't understand. See, my father said, you know what? If I could just get my artist on Ed Sullivan, then people can see them and see all the work we've done, all the artist development. Our folks are classy. Our folks are cultured, right? And they look beautiful. And we have great songs. And if we could just get them on Ed Sullivan, and we got Stevie on. Ed loves Stevie, and it's like, well, what else you got? Right?
Yeah.
And then
look. And even that, you said, look, he got Stevie on, and look, this is another 6 degree of separation. And just remember, you gave the whole thing about Quincy and Michael Jackson and all of that. Who was the first Black artist that they featured on MTV? Who broke the color barrier on MTV? That was Michael Jackson, and then from Whitney Houston or whatever. But I'm just saying.
Right.
I don't even know if it's 6 degrees of separation. I think it's like 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah, well, it's less. But check this out. What had to happen before that? Rick James had to make a huge stink about the fact that he had this smash record and they're playing all of these white acts and they weren't playing him. Right.
Yeah.
And so he made this big stink and talked about them. But he had money. He wasn't scared about it. Now, what happens is they never played Rick James, but they said, but we are playing Black music. And that's when they said, okay, we're going to play Michael Jackson and Prince. That is, but that needed to happen in order for Michael Jackson and Prince to happen.
Yes, 100%. So Kerry Gordy, it's such a pleasure. Everyone should see it. Kerry is the executive producer of Sunday Best. It is a new Netflix documentary about how the Ed Sullivan Show rewrote the rules of television by championing Black entertainers when it wasn't cool to do so. Everyone should watch it. Go click on Netflix and watch this. You're going to learn. You'll get a lesson. You'll get some history. But more than anything, you'll be entertained. Kerry, thank you.
I love you, Mr. Don Lemon. You're anytime you call me, I'm there for anything ever.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you. And my regards to your family, and you take care. I accept that, and I am humbled by it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Big love to you.
Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.